Welcome back to McCarthy Performance. We're working on the 565 dart block and ran into something. I never had a problem with the dart block before, but things happen, and that's why it's so important to check everything for clearance. So I didn't cover every specific thing that you need to do, but covered some of the things that should be done. And if you cover them, you probably can figure out the rest. There'll be other videos on assembling this engine, and there's videos of me modifying the pistons to achieve clearance that we found out that we have because I went through the trouble of doing that, and it's all on my channel. Thanks for watching. Okay, got the block somewhat clean enough to test fit the crank. Set the crank in the block. It's hitting in this area here, this area here, and this area and this area there. And it's ball milled, and there's quite a bit of a ledge right there. So that is the first time that I've ran across that with this particular block, a dart. Although this is a newer design dart, like I said before in previous videos, something obviously they've done a little different because this has never been an issue in the past. It's hitting on the side of the counterweight, so it's actually not letting a standard counterweight configuration big block Chevrolet crank swing through. Has nothing to do with the stroke. It has everything to do with being it's a full counterweight, and that crank doesn't have much stroke on it, so it's not even, that could possibly be a GM forging, raw forging that crawler ground at one time many years ago. So it's not a Louisville forging or a Calais forging or anything of that nature. So the counterweights would be the same on most, probably like a 427 crank. And I think that would probably have a problem hitting here and there because the counterweights aren't profiled or nothing. It's pretty much, there's nothing really glamorous about that crank except it's got a 1/4 inch stroke on it and it's a double keyway crank. So that's where we are. I'm going to grind on these until I get some clearance. Okay, so I'm going to grind this. I'm going to try to keep a radius in it. I'm going to blend this down. It's actually webbing out right here and causing it to rub here and there. So I'll probably rough grind it out till it clears and then I'll buff it back. But right now we're just going to grind it to clear. And we got to move quite a bit of material out of there because the crank ain't even sitting down on the rear main bearing. Okay, we're going to do a little more grinding right here. As this webs out, I believe it's catching the counterweight. So I'm going to take it to that step right there. So I'm going to blend this back. This side looks pretty good. There's a little high spot right here. I'm going to blend that back. This is the oil return hole for the fuel pump cavity. We're not really concerned about that. This is standing a little bit proud, so we're going to knock that back. It should sweep all the way around. It should be a continuous, even radius for the counterweight to clear, and it's hitting. And this side as well. We're hitting right here where you can see some chatter marks from the end mill. So I'm going to blend that back. I believe I've got this pretty much taken care of. This counterweight is the radius. Swings through. Hopefully that'll clear. It's a little high right here. I'm going to trim it back a little more there and here. And then I'll try to fit the crank again, and hopefully the crank will turn and sit down, of course, in the bearing. We also have to make sure that we have adequate clearance too, because we want end play. We don't want the crank being rubbing on anything, and very well these could be an issue. I'm hoping that they're not, but all this has got to be checked. The last 10200 block I used was pre-COVID. I've used mostly Worlds. I think I said in the last video, and I've not run across this problem. This is something that's new to me. It never was a problem before. Okay, this will be the second time we'll set the crank. Well, I can wiggle the crank back and forth. It looks like everything clears now. We'll check to make sure that the rods clear through. Don't hit the oil pan rails. Yeah. Polish this back and we should get at least about 60 thou. Everything looks pretty darn good. It's coming close right here. I'm going to mark that. I'm going to dust that back. Grind a little bit there. That counterweight looks good. Back here it looks a little tight. So we'll check for the rods to clear. That'll be the next thing to do, and then hopefully wash it and start putting it together. It's a little tight. Excuse me. Right there, we need to break it. Break this edge back here. Everything looks good. I've got some feeler gauges I made out of cardboard. I'll check inside and make sure some of these radiuses we clear on. This one looks good. This one here looks tight. Clear on that. Yeah, some of these early crawlers, I don't know. This appears that it could be a GM type forging, although it does say BAW on that crank, it looks like, or something of that nature. But 59, these numbers up here kind of look like GM forgings, and they did offer an aftermarket raw forging at one, well, a raw forging from GM that you could stroke. And I'll check it with my feeler gauges. Okay, that clears through. These look pretty dilapidated, but they work. I just took some thin cardboard and overlapped it, and that's about 90 to 80 thousandths right there. If it hits on the tape, then I know it's too tight. We're good on that. This counterweight looked kind of close. We'll check this one. Clears through, no problem. Yeah, everything looks like it's clearing now, but I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna polish up some of these spots. just to be on the safe side. This one here is snug. That one hits. So everything's good except that one there where I got it marked. So I'll dust back that one. When I take the crank out, I'm going to leave the crank in it now and check the all positions to make sure everything clears. So that'll be the next thing. Okay, this rod is a 625 length rod. So the counterweights on this crank are not, probably would clear a 638 rod. But being this is a tall deck with a 1/4 inch stroke, that's what we ended up with. Getting back to these counterweights, if you've noticed, there's some welds on the tops of them and they look horrendous. And there's a reason why I didn't go through them and clean them welds up. This crank is used, it's been balanced a couple times, it's been probably repaired. I know it's 1010. I can't see if it's been welded, but this isn't the world's nicest crank, but the customer wanted to use it. So I'm using it. I mean, it's a crawler crank. At one time it was a very nice crank, but after a crank's been balanced a couple times for different different weights, for the and the counterweights have been modified, it starts getting to a point where a new crank is a nice crank. It doesn't have so many landmines in it, so to speak. But the guy wanted to save a few bucks and he had this crank, and it checked out okay, and so that's what's in it. So if you see some spots on this crank that don't look very nice, you're not going blind. There's a video of me talking about this crank and actually modifying this crank to put more weight on it. There's a problem when you get into a crank like this. The stuff that I've done on it, not to be a smart ass, but the stuff I've done on it, you don't notice because you can't see it. The stuff that they've done on it, you notice it. And I wasn't going to get in and start grinding on a crank and blending some of this nastiness back because I don't know if these are real plugs of just steel or if somebody put Mallory metal in this way. And you're never supposed to put Mallory metal in this way. You're always supposed to sling it. There's a bunch of Mallory metal up here. It's been slung this way through the counterweights. So it had to come down to the profile of the counterweight. As there's a radius here, it disappears here, it gets kind of sharp here because somebody's gone after it with a grinder. I mean, this crank is not pretty, but pretty don't necessarily win races. It would be nice to start out with something a little different, but everything clears on that number one. So we're going to go through this bank and check every single one, make sure everything clears, but looks really good. We'll do the other side, and actually, I didn't expect the crank to hit on the edges of the counterweights. They're hitting on the edge. They were hitting on the edges. They weren't hitting up here. They weren't hitting up here. They were hitting right on this edge right here. From this point to that point, these are the two widest points of the counterweight. So, you know, somebody would say, well, you cut the counterweights down. Well, no, you don't do that, because we've got Mallory metal in this thing. You can't cut the counterweights. You cut the counterweights, you effectively change the weight of the crank. Then there would be more metal put in it. And the reason probably why he wanted me to hang on to this crank and use it is because it's already got 3 slugs here, 4 slugs. So in the back, I think there's 1, 2, 3, and realistically, there was one probably should have been here, but we couldn't, so I ended up putting that on that crank. So, you know, you're talking 6 pieces of, over 6 pieces of Mallory metal. That adds up really quick. And, you know, would have been easily another crank, could have been 4, could have been a little bit less, but I doubt it. It would have been probably that. So we're going to go through and we're going to check the rest of the rods and make sure everything clears. Of course, from the piston bottom to the counterweight, we can slide my little checker through there and make sure. And it, like I said, this rod is a lot longer than what would need to be in a 9/800 deck. If you were to stroke it a 1/4 inch, you would use probably a 250 longer rod, which would be a 6/385 rod. This rod is 6/25, so it's longer and it keeps it away from the counterweights, and that helps with balancing things too. But that's the combination he wanted to run. That's the combination we ran, or we are going to run. The cam bearings have all been prepped, so now I'm going to go through and check everything. And once I go through and I check everything for clearance, then we'll put the cam bearings in. This thing will get washed a couple times because it's clean enough to check. Excuse me. It's not even close to clean enough to put together. So I'll get back and I'll check them, and we'll get back on it. And I won't make a video of me checking each one. Right now it's got plenty of clearance. There's plenty right there. The only thing we got to do now is we're going to check the crank and make sure that there's no run out on it. So we're going to put a dial indicator on it here when I'm done and check that for run out. Make sure the crank doesn't have any run out on it, or very little if it does. And then we're going to check the cam to rod clearance. On aluminum rods, they're a lot thicker around the fork end, and depending on how wild of a cam you've got, sometimes the cam can get hitting off of this area here. So, but that's minor. Once it's rotating, if the cam doesn't fit, we'll have to go to a reduced base circle cam, or he'll have to change the cam profile he's got. He's got a camshaft over there that he wants me to use. So if it clears, I'll use it. If it doesn't clear, then we're going to have to do a different camshaft. But, you know, one thing at a time. So we'll get on to checking every hole and making sure it clears. Real quick, there's other things to check, of course, making sure the rods don't bounce off the bottom of the block, but we're also checking the counterweight to the bottom of the piston, like I said before, and we want to make sure that there's ample clearance between the rod and the piston. Or have one of them days when your tongue wants to say something else and you're trying to get it to say what you want it to. Well, I'm having one of them days today. Luckily, I don't have to talk everything through everything I want to do with my hands. They're still cooperating. So you want to make sure that the rod clears. And like I've said, the cam, of course, you want to make sure that the rod clears the cam. And you'll definitely want to make sure that the bottom of the pistons clear the counterweights. That's very important. And with this longer rod, it's not an issue, but we check it. And you also want to make sure from the piston to the rod there's clearance there. And this is probably, you can go a little bit less than 60, but I like 60. If everything clears through here, everything, and it's, if you use the rule of thumb of 60 thousandths, you're not going to have a problem. So we've got room here, and we got room on the other side of the piston to the rod. If you fail to do that, if you have 0 to hardly any clearance, this rod's aluminum, you'll experience bad things. And I've clearanced pistons for aluminum rods that were ran like that, and luckily I don't know why it didn't blow up. So we're on number 8. Everything looks good. So I'm not going to go through any more of them. You've seen how I check it. You can make yourself up a little feeler gauge. I mean, it doesn't look like nothing, but you'd be surprised. I've used that thing for many years. I should probably make a newer one, but I just double it over and tape it, and you know, if it puts a dent in the tape, then you know. But that right there is probably close to 90 thousandths, like I said, and that'll allow you to go anywhere that you need to go where you can't get in there with, yeah, that's about 80 some thousandths right there. That'll allow you to get anywhere you need to go that you're going to have a hard time with a feeler gauge, because this thing's like a wet noodle. You can slide it all over the place and check to see where things are binding. This side isn't quite as thick, so that I did that intentionally. This is kind of a poor man's go and no-go gauge. So everything's clearing, everything looks good. There's a couple spots. I'm going to take the crank out. I'm going to polish some spots back. I'll show you where they are. And then I'll assemble the bottom end. The next video will probably be me doing that. Not a real exciting video, but hey, listen, you can't gloss over this stuff, because you don't know what's going to bite you in the ass. And on stock GM blocks I've had where the 1/4 inch strokers, the counterweights will cut, where the block is cut out, let's say from GM, it'll rub in the machine marks. So you got to check all this stuff. So if you get any enjoyment out of my videos, please hit like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I'm surprised I picked up a few more people. You know, if there's like 5 or 6 guys that are watching, and I've always said that if I help them, that'd be great for me, but I'd like to see if I can get to 1,000. And a lot of guys are watching the videos. They're not watching all of it. I get that. They're not very exciting, but if you do this, or you're going to get into this for a living, I think if you watch every video that I've put out there, and you can tolerate some of the good with the bad, because they're not professionally made videos, I think you'll learn quite a bit. And a matter of fact, I think that some of my videos cover a lot of things maybe other guys are not covering. You know, if you want to see me do a set of, you know, old power pack heads or something like that, I can rip them off the shelf over there and we can go through a set of heads. But I don't really know what people want to watch. So I'm making videos as jobs go through the shop that I think that you might get some enjoyment out of, maybe possibly some information. Well, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you very much.